Life was nothing but bliss in a small rural town of Florida near the Okefenokee Swamp. Families were happy, living in their own homes, going out on the weekends, holding their own yard sales and block parties, where neighbors and other townsfolk got a chance to socialize together. Although the people still followed the old-fashioned ways and preferred a laid-back lifestyle, it was last winter that some of the town's youth started new businesses with city folk who settled in town. New companies, factories, malls, and shops were opened, and along with that came many job opportunities. The people of this small town were progressing, and it looked like they had a great future ahead of them. But all hope for a bright future faded away just about when spring rolled around. Strange, abnormal things started to occur in the once peaceful and quiet town. At first, it started with little wandering children going missing, followed by their parents and family members who went to search for them. People suspected they disappeared into the Okefenokee Swamp. Hunters and skilled men were sent to bring back news, but even they didn't return. When the townspeople started to question and protest about the whereabouts of their fellow neighbors and family members, havoc spread across the town. Some people became violent in rage and depression from the loss of their loved ones, and others became so fearful they locked themselves in their homes. The authorities had gathered together to discuss what was going on and the steps needed to be taken for the safety of the people. And just when they started to panic, even more horrifying events started to occur in town. The first of which were the birds. Flocks of birds were seen leaving their habitat in the Okefenokee Swamp. Then there were other small wild animals that were known to fear humans were now taking shelter in barns and homes. No one could understand the crazy occurrences. What was happening to the animals? It was finally, on one dark night, that the townsfolk got to know what was causing all these nuisances. Some families that lived towards the swamp ran out of their homes when they heard numerous screams and cries for help from one of their neighbors' home. Men grabbed their rifles and broke down the door to find a woman and her children huddled in the corner of their room, trying to defend themselves with brooms and sticks. The men were frightened themselves when they saw aggressive alligators chomping their sharp teeth at them. They had never seen alligators so large before. The alligator's teeth were long and poked out of its mouth. The scutes on its back had become sharp and pointy, and every stomp it took shook the floors of the house. Fortunately, the men worked together and were able to overpower the vicious beasts. The alligators were tranquilized and locked into cages and sent to the animal facility. But the tranquilizers only affected them for so long. The veterinarians weren't able to perform any tests on the animals. They too were bewildered by the size of the alligators and how rogue and untamable they were. When the news got out, people came forward and offered to bring down the beastly alligators that lurked the Okefenokee Swamp. They feared for their lives and the lives of their loved ones and were willing to do whatever they could for their safety. Who knew? They would be sleeping peacefully one night and would wake up to find their home infested with alligators. Before anything like that happened, they protested to be allowed into the Okefenokee Swamp to get the business over with, before it was too late. It wasn't before long that others in town protested against them, that they were being cruel and inhumane. The real solution was not to kill them, but to capture them and, if possible, heal them. Taking lives was never a solution to anything. Authorities banned all protests from the streets and cautioned everyone to secure their locks, gates, and windows before nightfall. All pets and farm animals were being kept inside homes and barns, not to lure any more alligators out of the swamp area. But even after all these precautions, numerous alligators were seen ravaging across the town, feasting on cattle and other animals. Although they were larger than the average alligator, they varied in sizes, some more vicious than others. When a few accidents occurred in which people lost their lives, the townsfolk were scared to even leave their homes. The animal facility worked day and night trying to capture the alligators and bring them to a place of safety, but were soon running out of space and food. A week later, authorities were informed that a group of men were seen venturing into the Okefenokee Swamp with their rifles, guns, nets, and machetes. The police immediately went to investigate the matter. A few families came forward and admitted that their fathers or sons or their husbands had went to bring back the alligators and end this for all. The police sent a crew of their own to bring back the men. However, when night fell and none had returned, panic and desperation set in town. None were able to sleep that night, and early that dawn, cries were heard near the swamp. Some people hurried to rescue a survivor. It was one of the townsmen. He was in a horrible condition, weak, with cuts and bruises all over his body. He was taken to the hospital, where the police were allowed to question him after a few hours of rest and recovery. "What happened to you? Where are the others? What did you see?" They're all dead. There's something in the water, something lurking beyond the green mist. There were 5 of us on the airboat. The moment we entered into the Okefenokee Swamp, we knew something wasn't right. It was eerily quiet. The waters were still. We couldn't see any alligators or even sense any movement in the water. But we were all on guard. The further we went into the swamp, the heavier and greener the mist became. It was hard to see anything. We could vaguely make out our shadowy figures. We spoke to each other, keeping count and awareness of how we were doing. When we reached far into the swamp, we stopped when we heard something move in the groves. We spotted something dark. That was when something hit our boat. We were horrified when a giant air bubble burst from the water, gurgling out muck, moss, and weeds. One of the men screamed out when he recognized what was floating in the waters. It was the bare limbs of one of his relatives who had recently gone missing. The man was devastated. He wanted to jump into the waters immediately. We all tried to hold him back, but he was uncontrollable. He pushed us all aside and jumped into the murky swamp. It was in a matter of seconds before he started screaming. "Help! Help! I can't take the pain. Something's got me. My leg. Give me the rope. Someone, lend me your hand. Save me." We acted as fast as we could and threw out our rope towards him. We were relieved when he caught hold of it. But it was of no use. We pulled the rope, and it came flying back at us. Something had ripped it into 2. That's when the other men jumped into the water with their machetes and spears to rescue him. I was the only one to stay on the boat. I heard all of them scream for their lives as they were dragged along the murky waters into the mist. I didn't know what to do. I felt like jumping into the waters and meeting my end right there and then. The only thing that brought me back was the desire for revenge. We have to find what's lurking in the water, and we have to get rid of it. The authorities finally sent notice around town for volunteers who would help solve this mystery. Within the next few days, they put together a crew of trained men, scientists, and doctors who went into the Okefenokee Swamp fully equipped and ready for battle. But the very next morning, the airboats returned earlier than expected. No one was missing, no one had been hurt. Everyone welcomes them back in awe, shedding tears down their cheeks in relief. The townspeople were crowded on the streets in front of the town hall. One of the scientists who had gone on the mission came forward to speak. "We were mistaken. The birds, other animals, were not here to attack us. They were left with no choice but to leave their habitats. It was the alligators, but the alligators were only victim like us, maybe even more in trouble than we thought. The main culprit was the water itself. The waters of the Okefenokee have become toxic. Whether it was intentionally poisoned or whether it had developed is still a matter of more research. But what seems to be the case is that toxic waste elements were being disposed of into the swamp waters. Perhaps the factories are to blame. The alligators had been living, drinking, feasting in these contaminated waters. This is what has affected them to turn like this, aggressive, rogue, and giant. With the test we have performed so far, the waters of the Okefenokee Swamp are off limits. It contains elements that we know of, and some elements that we are unaware of, all dangerously lethal, toxic, and highly acidic. Hearing what the scientists had to say, the people began murmuring amongst each other, blaming each other. Businessmen pointed fingers at one another. Factory owners began quarreling. In the midst of the mayhem, a young man was pushed out of the crowd towards the podium. Lowering his head in shame, he said, "It was our company. We are responsible for what has been happening. We did this to the alligators. There's a reason why they have become so huge. They are in the process of mutation. We built a facility deep in the Okefenokee Swamp to run our business of selling alligator skin. Our factory produces hundreds of thousands of alligator skin products, from shoes to handbags to wallets and more. We chose this location specifically because the Florida swamps are known for its alligators. But with an increase in demand of our products, we had to make other arrangements. Our scientists have developed a chemical formula that would increase the size of the alligators, and along with that would come a large amount of what we need. We captured numerous alligators and sent them to the facility to undergo the experiments. But we soon realized how hazardous and dangerous they resulted. The alligators began increasing in size, and they kept increasing, and so did their appetite. They became insatiable and so aggressive it became difficult to maintain them. Things went wrong when one of the alligators wreaked havoc in the facility. It not only escaped into the swamp, but caused leakage of the toxic waste into the waters of the swamp. The waters have become contaminated with the chemicals. That is what is causing all the alligators to become so vicious. I'm afraid we're in danger. It won't be long before they start hunting for more food. But what is more frightening to imagine is how the chemical will affect all the animals living in the swamp area. It won't just be a fight against the alligators, but it could be much more than that. We've made a big mistake. We'll never be able to rest in peace with these alligators lurking the swamps. I promised them. I'll not only find the beast, but I'll bring it back on my spear. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.